Hey guys, welcome to this video. So you guys read the title. We are comparing two of the most hated or love to hate, I guess, characters in YA fiction ever. And they have pretty similar storylines, vampire, werewolf, two love interest kind of thing. So I wanted to take the similarities and I wanted to see who really was the more annoying or hated character, in my not professional opinion. So before I begin the video, I would like firstly to apologize about my audio. I've never done a video with my voice before, so if I sound nervous or the audio's kind of jump cutty from where I had to cut out parts that were just a bunch of ums and so's, that's why. Also, the audio is from my iPhone mic, and there's a very loud fan in the background, so it's not great. Anyway, thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and enjoy. So for anyone who has lived under a rock and does not know what Twilight is, I'm just going to give an origin story for not only Twilight, but the Vampire Diaries series as a whole. It's very quick, very concise. The first Twilight movie was released on November 21st, 2008 in the US, and Vampire Diaries TV show came a little less than a year later, with its season 1 premiere airing on September 10th, 2009. This was the beginning of the peak of the super powerful / supernatural creature falls under the love spell of a basic boring human, even though he's surrounded by thousands of other beautiful and cultured vampires phenomenon. The Twilight franchise was the captain of that ship. Even though the Twilight movies were the main reason that the vampire love craze really started and blossomed into a huge thing, the Twilight books actually came after the Vampire Diaries books. That's right, there are books, which I didn't know existed until well after the show finished. I guess I just ignored that part in the credits. The first Twilight book was published on October 5th, 2005, while the Vampire Diaries had been published in the early 90s, 1991 to be exact. So now that we know the time period these books came from, let's talk about the storylines. I'll discuss them in a super fast, easy to digest bullet point list format for you so we can just get straight to the comparison. Twilight. So, a basic 2000s plain human girl moves to the Pacific Northwest, the area where all girls in the 2000s dream to live. She complains a lot about being new and the center of attention. She meets a hot, creepy vampire. He seemingly dislikes her because she smells like Forever 21 in Arizona, but actually it's just because he wants to drink the intoxicating Kool-Aid that is her blood. Sure, everything else about her's hella boring, but her blood just happens to be the best damn blood in the galaxy. Edward, just admit you're weird, dude. He avoids her stank ass and she throws a pity party about it, but he eventually comes back and then they have a weird biology off. Then they proceed to spend about 75% of the movie being in love with each other, but avoiding each other because he's dangerous. She goes on a Google quest, she's nearly sexually assaulted, but is saved by Edward, who was just like weirdly around and definitely not following her. I think she goes on another Google quest, even though she bought a book. Then she has to say it. She meets his family and it goes. There's some cool baseball scenes, and then evil vampires just kind of treadmill into frame. Ponytail man James suddenly wants to eat her, have sex with her, eat her, both, I don't know. Then Bella sneaks off to let him kill her because she got bamboozled by him. Edward and Co come in and do a jig around his corpse in the fire. Bella does this weird thing on the floor, a boring teen prom, and that's about it. Wolf Boy wasn't in it much. Vampire Diaries Season 1. This is a significantly longer show to describe, so I'll try and go even faster with it. Basic 2000s plain human girl, seriously, what is with the fits in these shows? With super perfect hair, lives in a small and definitely not spooky town in Virginia. She's super sad and is dealing with the death of her parents while also trying to stop her brother from doing drugs. She meets a super cute and definitely not a vampire named Stefan while coming out of the men's restroom. They hit it off like super fast, like crazy fast, but I guess that happens when you're both hot. Stefan's bad boy brother Damon rolls up into town, and he may or may not be killing folks because he's just that bad. Elena and Stefan dance around trying to be in a relationship while avoiding the X topic. She does some Nancy Drew sleuthing, discovers he's a vampire, and he takes her on a trip to the past. They kill her brother's girlfriend, a secret kill-all-vampires gang threatens the peace. Elena finds out she looks just like Catherine, who is Stefan's ex, which is definitely not some deep-rooted psychological issue on his part. Bad boy is in town just to dig up a starving, entombed vampire Elena. I don't know, man. Maybe just pretend she's Catherine and save yourself a lot of the work. Elena's adopted. Her mom's a bitch. Bad boy is now sad boy when he realizes the way cooler version of Elena left his ass and is actually not entombed nor starving. Sad boy is the one who turned Elena's mom into a bitch. And after a loud dog whistle tango on the town square, all's good, except cool Elena's back to screw with Stefan and Elena's dope and definitely not boring love life. That's season 1. Yes, note, by the way, I'm only focusing on season 1 of the Vampire Diaries and movie one of Twilight series, because if I was to focus on all 8 seasons of the Vampire Diaries and all 5 movies of the Twilight series, we would be here for 5 hours. So if you guys want another video comparing like the later seasons to the later movies, I would definitely be down to do that, but this just makes it a lot easier to digest and it's not an overwhelming information list. So now we will use a list of questions that I prepared to determine who is actually the better character between the two. Question 1. What are they like before they meet the love interest? Not much is known about Bella before she meets Edward. She has divorced parents and used to come see her dad for a few weeks, who she pulls like some serious white people shit with and calls him Charlie. She moves in with her dad after her mom just decides to fuck off or going around the country with her new boyfriend, like, I don't know. And Bella seems to be pretty antisocial or just really depressed, or both. Early in the movie, we're presented with this awkward teen girl who's just trying to make it through life as quietly as possible, which is a common character mold in romances, because of course her life won't be normal when the male lead comes and shakes it up. Overall, what is Bella like before Edward? She's pretty boring, or rather average. She has a more cynical viewpoint on life. She's definitely highly prone to depression, as we see in the second movie, and really seems like many teenagers her age, kind of lost without any sense of a purpose. Elena has a more tragic backstory, with both her parents dying in a car crash. She was the only one that came out of that crash alive, so you can tell that weighs pretty heavily on her. She has a little brother to look after because they're left in the care of her very young Aunt Jenna. While Jenna isn't a bad guardian, she just clearly wasn't ready for it. Elena has to try to be the strong one in the family because her brother's dealing with his trauma a bit more directly by falling pretty heavily into drugs. Elena seems to struggle with depression as well because after her parents' death, her life has seemingly lost a sense of purpose. A lot of the school activities and things she did were for her parents, and now, like Bella, she's just sort of an empty shell who's trying to pass through life quietly. So what is Elena like before meeting Stefan? She's a ghost of her former self. I think she even says a few times throughout the first season that she wishes Stefan could have met the old her because she was fun, popular, outgoing. Now, after her parents' death, she just seems to be internalizing a lot of trauma, PTSD, and depression. As a whole, we have 2 characters who are pretty similar in their initial character setup. They're both pretty depressed or have a skewed outlook on death, with Elena trying to accept death but struggling with the fact that everyone she loves seem to be dying at an alarming rate. I mean, seriously, everyone she loves dies at least once, if not multiple times throughout this show. On the other hand, Bella really hasn't seemed to experience death anywhere near as much as Elena, so her viewpoint likely comes from a place of fear of the unknown. And it's normal to fear death. I mean, it's a feeling that most people go through at least once in their lives, but in the movie, Bella just never really tries to come to terms with death. In fact, the opening line of the movie, she literally says, "I'd never given much thought to how I would die." It feels like she only considered death once she met the Cullens, because they defy the nature of death themselves. I mean, I guess it's normal not to think about death as a young and healthy teenager, but I certainly constantly sit around and think about it, but hey, that's what you do when the world's a dumpster fire. Bella even seems to make up her mind as soon as she knows what Edward is, that she wants to be like him, so she doesn't have to grow old and die while loving him. It's understandable to a degree that Bella would think about turning into a vampire eventually. I mean, if she and Edward were really in love, then if they wanted to be together, forever seems like the only real alternative there. But she wants to become a vampire so fast and literally worries and has panic attacks over the fact that she's turning 18. Fucking 18? Edward's 17 and she's like 8 hours into being 18 and she wants to be turned like ASAP. If we look at it from a divorce standpoint, her reasoning might become a bit clearer. This is just a theory of mine and probably the English major in me looking way too far into shit that's just not there. But to me, it seems like Bella doesn't want to grow much older than Edward because she might be scared that he's gonna leave her. A 1-year age difference is a bit excessive to be worrying about that. But in Bella's world, the only real relationship she knew was her parents' failed one. So she naturally feels as though love might always be set to crash and burn. And she doesn't want Edward to leave her alone because without him, she probably does feel rejected, alone, unwanted, or unloved. Elena is weirdly the antithesis of Bella in this regard. She makes it pretty clear in season 1 that she does not want to be a vampire and live forever. She wants a normal human life and she wants to die a peaceful death. It's easy to comprehend why she feels that way when you look at the fact that everyone around her dies. She's a teenager in high school and has lost literally almost everyone in her life at such a young age. They often died tragic deaths on top of that, so why would Elena want to die some tragic death way too young so she can just be a vampire and cheat death in some sick way? Of course, she has the incentive of being able to be with Stefan forever, but to Elena, it seems to be more important to her that she's able to preserve what makes her human, and rather than to live afraid and running towards immortality away from death, she rather chooses to embrace it because she's well versed in the knowledge that death does not discriminate or give privilege to anyone. Question 2. What personality/character traits do they have? Does she have the personality of a stale potato chip? Maybe. But we do know a few helpful things, and I do use the word helpful lightly. She's definitely a clumsy person. Clumsy is not a personality trait. I am a fucking idiot. Anyways, while I was looking for any resemblance of a personality in this girl, I'll just say I did not realize how dry she was, and I don't know if that's just me, but like, I don't know. She has moments where she's actually pretty funny, but like, I can't tell if she's trying to be funny or if it just comes off that way because she's so awkward. But regardless, she's pretty sarcastic, definitely Gen Z, from the overwhelming disregard for things that put her in danger all the way to her I can change him mentality. She was the blueprint for all of us. I'm gonna say it now. She was the Gen Z blueprint, and I can't even be mad about it. Overall, she's pretty quiet, reserved, all around awkward, but she does seem like she's smart. To everyone who's watching this video that just clicked out, like, hear me out. I'm not talking about Edward. I mean, like, academically, she seems smart. Because even though they're doing, like, some of the simplest biology you can fucking do, she remembers that shit from her time in Arizona. And girl, I can't even remember half of my childhood, dead ass. I don't know if I just blocked out Elena and Bella's personalities or if they were really that unmemorable, but like, damn, I had to think about this. So from what I can remember, she somehow managed to have a happier personality than Bella, even though her whole family is dead. In all seriousness though, Elena was a pretty selfless character in the first season, almost to the point that it got annoying. Like, she was the most useless character next to Matt, and she stayed doing the most. Like, I don't get it. She definitely tried to be a better friend than Bella, and she managed to have friendships that were outside of the vampire circle. Overall, her personality was selfless, kind of annoying, kind, and a bit less relatable than Bella, because let's be honest, we all wanted to picture our lives like Elena, being rich, Nina Dobrev levels of gorgeous, having two fine-ass men fighting for us, all while we remain humble and human. But you know my ass would be Bella, just coughing and tripping and falling and shaking my head in confusion as to what fucking Wattpad novel I just walked into. Question 3. How realistic is the romance? Okay, so clearly we have to put aside the paranormal vampire side of the romance, because clearly that is not happening to us. And if it is, send me the location. I am ready to become YN. It's my life goal. So the actual progression of their romance, how is it? Well, we have to take into account that Twilight had only a short movie span to show romance, while Vampire Diaries had a whole 22 episodes in season 1 alone. So it has a bit of an advantage. I personally think that as many people like to hate on Bella's reaction towards Edward, I would say it's pretty realistic. Now, realistic does not equal healthy or goals, but it is realistic. I mean, Bella's pretty dependent on Edward's attention, but if I met a vampire who was like weirdly gorgeous and obsessed with me, he could watch me sleep all he likes and I'd still call him dad. The progression of the romance is again a bit fast, but is a movie rather than a series. We will discuss later whether or not the relationship is healthy. Spoiler alert, it's not. But I don't know, there's something about the way the romance is portrayed in Twilight that's turned it into a cult classic. I mean, look at the reappearance of Twilight culture after Midnight Sun came out. The relationship definitely plays into the whole weak female / strong guy who only cares about her and hates everyone else trope, which even I'm a sucker for. But is it a good example of a relationship? No. But I think, sadly, that is what makes it all the more realistic. Once again, the Vampire Diaries had a lot longer to flesh out the relationship, and I'm talking about Elena and Stefan. Yes, I know she eventually ends up with Damon, and I actually really liked the slow burn of her and Damon, but since I'm only talking about season 1, I'm gonna be focusing on her and Stefan. Even though I always wanted Damon and Elena to be the endgame that they eventually were, even I can admit that her and Stefan were cute. The relationship, when you take out all the vampires and friends dying plot, which is most of it, it's actually pretty simple and adorable. It just feels like a high school romance, but in a totally different way than Twilight. Twilight gave us like awkward first serious relationship vibes that we all had and we all hate to look back on, but Vampire Diaries gave us two characters who had experienced relationships before and who weren't awkward but rather represented the serious idyllic first love that we all want. Question 4. How did they find out and react to the supernatural world, and how did their characters change after finding out about it? So both Bella and Elena have their sleuthing moments, but they're done pretty differently. Bella starts getting suspicious when Edward starts doing odd things, like stopping a whole ass van, weirdly shifting away from her, staring a lot, disappearing, being moody, secretive. I mean, come on, dude, you couldn't make it more fucking obvious that you were a vampire. Anyways, Bella does some research on the internet and then goes and buys the book that she doesn't use, yada yada yada, we all know that. Then they go into some dark brooding forest for Edward to get her to say it and throw some trees and cheese. cheesy lines. Bella had been suspicious for a while of Edward being a vampire, so she isn't really shocked or scared, at all, which is why I continue to say Bella is our Gen Z queen, because Edward literally says, I could kill you right now, and every fiber of my being is trying to, and Bella just continues to want to fuck him. She might want to fuck him more because of this threat to her life. Elena also does some sleuthing through news articles when people around town start recognizing Stefan, and sometimes she sees those weird veins come out of his eyes. I think Elena's discovery definitely took a lot more work because she definitely convinces people to let her look at top secret documents and news archive footage that she should not have been allowed to see. And I think she also reacted pretty realistically to finding out that he was a vampire. Stefan just shows up at her house and she's terrified of him and doesn't even want to see him until they later go on an exposition episode where he just dumps his backstory on her. But overall, Elena has to adjust to him being a vampire, and I think that's why I like that situation better for her rather than Bella, because Bella just kind of accepted it. She was Gen Z material and just accepted the threat to her life, just accepted that vampires existed, that Edward had probably killed people, that he was probably not always a great person. Whereas Elena deals with that. She actually sits and thinks about it, cries over it, they break up, and you wonder if they're gonna get back together or what's gonna happen. I mean, they're gonna get back together because there's so many more seasons, but she really reacts realistically. She's confused, she's hurt, she's concerned because he might be a murderer. He is, I don't know. We also have to take into account that in Vampire Diaries, all of the vampires had mind control or compulsion powers. So Elena's left wondering if her memory was altered and if he tricked her into falling in love with him, and if she actually didn't give a shit about him. I mean, her memory wasn't altered, thankfully, but it is a serious problem that her and Stefan have to work through before they become a normal high school couple again. Question 5. Is their whole purpose just being a love interest? So is Bella's whole point to be a love interest for Edward, even though she is herself the main character? Sadly, yeah. She doesn't really do or think about anything outside of Edward or the Cullens in general, which is fair. If vampires went to high school with me, I would definitely spend my entire time thinking about them, but Bella's a book/movie character, and she needs to show more personality besides just Edward. I don't watch movies to see a version of what could easily be me, personality-wise. There's a serious line between relatability and just plain boring. I mean, I wish Bella would have just had a small side plot that grew her as a person outside of a love interest. Everything she does in the movie, she does with Edward's happiness in mind rather than her own. And my fuck the patriarchy attitude doesn't like it at all. I'm not here for it. I could make a whole separate video about this, but now you get this. Yeah, Elena's also pretty dependent on Stefan, but she has other plots, and I would say that it's because it's a TV show, so there's more time to flesh her out. But even in the books, all Bella really gives a shit about is Edward. Elena has side story with her friends, her brother and his drug addiction, her aunt and her not being able to parent because she's never done it before and she's super young, and the fact that she is a literal supernatural creature herself. She's not like Bella where she just falls in love with a vampire. Elena's a doppelganger, which classifies as a supernatural creature. She just serves a fuller purpose, and although I like to say her character was just as useless as Matt, she at least wasn't just a love interest. She was her own person. Question 6. How did they deal with the second love interest? Jacob isn't in the first movie much, so I can't really talk about it if I'm just focusing on the first movie, but in the book, he's a literal child. I think he's 13 or 14, and it's kind of weird. I'm not here for it. But even in later movies, which I said I wasn't going to talk about, but because he's not in it much, I kind of have to, she just leads him on overall, and I really didn't like their dynamic. Jacob had problems. He was, not great, 100%. He was a bit weird, but we won't even get into the toxic masculinity that is Jacob Black. But Bella just led him on continuously, and, he never even had a chance with her. We all knew it. We split into Team Jacob and Team Edward, but we knew who was coming out on top, and it was not Jacob. I love Elena and Damon's story arc. Yes, it has its problems, and yes, I would be more than happy to point them out in another video, but I just love an enemies to lovers slow burn. That's I love that. Damon gets ample plot and screen time, unlike Jacob, and he isn't as simpy as Jacob is. Damon's whole purpose isn't to be Elena's love interest, just like her whole purpose is not to be his love interest. They are their own person, and I think that's why I like them both so much. He is after Catherine in season 1, not even Elena, but overall Elena's compassion and character towards him leads him to develop feelings towards her rather than Catherine, and her I can change him attitude leads her to him. That's a joke. I'm joking. She likes him because she sees the good in him, and I actually really like that whole dynamic. He likes her because she makes him a better person. She likes him because she can see that he's a good person, even though everyone else hates him and sees only the bad. And so the second male lead actually becomes the first male lead, and I really, really like it. Question 7. Is their relationship toxic or not? This could turn into a long answer, so I'm going to try and keep it simple and short. Yeah, I mean it is. They are incredibly dependent on each other, even besides the whole Edward wanting to kill her and drink her blood stuff. He watches her sleep, which is weird. It's like, even if you're a vampire, why are you watching her sleep? It's weird. It's stalker behavior. Bella is just overly dependent on him, like, to an extreme degree. Her whole happiness depends on him, which, speaking from like trying to stand up for her here, I guess I can see that she is already at the beginning of the story, we can tell, pretty cynical, pretty depressed about things. She hasn't had the greatest life. So we come back to the whole, she puts every ounce of her love and admiration into Edward rather than into herself. So is it realistic? Yes, that's the realism question. It is a very realistic relationship, but is it what we should strive towards? No. It's incredibly toxic, even though it's common with many couples today in the real world. It's common, but it's incredibly toxic to sit there and hate yourself so much but love the partner you're with. You cannot truly love a partner if you can't love yourself. And I'm not saying that people with depression can't be in happy, great, successful relationships. I'm saying if you are in a place that you are so low that you actually hate yourself and you have such a negative opinion of yourself, like Bella does repeatedly throughout the book, putting herself down constantly, work on loving yourself first before you try and love someone else, because you are full of love and all that love is going to go towards the other person to the point where you become dependent. So like in the second movie, when he leaves, she just spirals into this dark self-hatred and depression and screaming in the middle of the night because she didn't learn how to love herself. So she's just kind of stuck. I would also say that they are toxic somewhat. They're not, it pales in comparison to Bella and Edward. Like, I could make a whole video about Bella and Edward. That's why I kind of cut myself short there. But Elena and Stefan did have some toxic moments. They were kind of dependent on each other. Stefan did initially go look for Elena because she looked like his ex, which was super fucking weird. But they are a bit more healthy than Bella and Edward. But there is a reason that they didn't work out. You know, she ends up with Damon. There's a reason for that. They are good friends, I think, but the relationship, there is a reason that it didn't work out. And was it because it was toxic? I don't know. You know, I wouldn't say it was toxic, but it was not the best relationship they could have been in. Question 8. Who experiences the most character growth? So this question kind of leads us into our final question, which is, who is the more annoying / worst character out of the two? I would say that the character that experiences the most character growth is probably Elena. So that means that the most annoying character is probably Bella. And going into writing the script, I thought that it was going to be Elena because, like, she just irritated me at some point. But looking at the story as a whole, we really see that Elena has growth. She doesn't become dependent on Stefan. She never was. Even though she lost her parents and she is incredibly depressed, she doesn't put all her love and admiration into Stefan. She doesn't create a toxic environment for herself and her brother and her friends. She tries to handle everything by herself, which isn't great, but she does handle it. She has growth. She doesn't find out Stefan's a vampire and want to become immortal. She doesn't want to live with him forever. She's actually terrified of their relationship because she knows she doesn't want to live forever. She wants to have kids and Stefan can't have kids. So it's a serious problem that they look into. She grows as a person, and I mean, she was already a nice person at the beginning of the series, you could tell, but she just becomes more sympathetic towards people, more brave, more selfless. And while she does get on all of the Vampire Diaries fans' nerves, like, I know she gets on our nerves. I've read the fan fictions. That's all we do is complain in the comments about how Elena's annoying. And she was annoying. Was it the actress's fault? No, because she played Catherine, who we all love and admire. I love Catherine. So Nina Dobrev was an outstanding actress. It was not her. But Elena was just, I guess, too whiny at times, too selfless at times. She had a severe lack of self-preservation in order to help everyone else, and I think that can sometimes drive us to dislike a character. Bella experienced no character growth. She experienced none. Not even just in the first movie. She experienced no character growth in the whole series, and like, if I get hate for saying that, I'm sorry. But she was a rock the entire series. She didn't grow at all. Like, what lesson did she learn? She finds out Edward's a vampire and she immediately wants to become one too. She doesn't care about Charlie, her dad. She doesn't care about her mom. She doesn't care about them, like, not knowing what the fuck happened to her, because she's going to have to drop off the face of the planet as soon as she turns into a vampire. She doesn't care that, like, she's signing up an eternity of her life to live with this man who she met a few weeks ago. It's very toxic, but at the same time, it's not a bad story. I'm not saying she's a bad character or it's a bad story. I love Twilight. I watched it a few days ago. I am currently rereading the books right now. So for me to sit here and pretend like I don't love the series, even as cringe and weird as it is, would be a lie, because I do enjoy the series, and I think there's some nostalgia about it, and it's good series. I don't know. Sue me. They're both good series. I like them. I don't know. Overall, I think Elena and Bella both symbolize what a traditional teenage girl was, right? The whole purpose of the movie and of the TV series is for the audience, who is primarily young teenage girls, to put themselves in the position of Bella and Elena. They want to pretend that they're them and that they have two attractive guys fighting over them, right? That's everyone who watched it at a young age. That's what we did, right? I'm not crazy. I'm not the only person who did that, I swear. So while this does well for sales and for making them both into cult classic, timeless shows and movies that we will forever remember as being a part of this decade, it does pose a problem where it makes your characters kind of lack something. And what I mean by that is there are books that have characters who are not trying to be like the person that's reading the book. They are different. They're built different. That was so fucking stupid. I hate myself. Anyway, the character is built to tell a story. By going on an adventure, by doing a commentary on more serious topics such as abuse, racism, sexism, homophobia. And, Vampire Diaries and Twilight doesn't claim to be in that market. It's not trying to change the world. It's not trying to be revolutionary. But I think when we're comparing them next to things like that, of course, Elena and Bella are going to be annoying characters. Of course, they're going to be very toxic characters because they are meant to be 13-year-old girls. Their mind is that of a 13-year-old girl. They immediately see a hot guy, they fall in love with him, even though he's hella weird, and the story just goes on from there and gets crazier and crazier because that's what it's targeted towards. So overall, I like both shows. I like both characters. Bella is a cult classic, and I resonate highly with Bella. And maybe that's why I put her as the most annoying character, because I am the most annoying character, and I see myself in Bella so much. So yeah, I guess that's the video. Pretty boring video, I guess. It was better in my head, as are all ideas, I suppose. Anyway, thanks for watching so much, you guys. And if you would like to check out my channel, please, please, please do so. I used to make, edits, trailer edits. I'm not doing that as much anymore. I kind of fell out of doing that. I just don't get enjoyment from it anymore. But I do have an upload schedule, which you can check out in the description. Every Saturday/Sunday, I post videos like this where I talk about movies, TV shows, characters, commentaries, and I will even be doing movie commentaries/TV show commentaries, and some of those commentaries will be for things like Korean dramas. So if you like those, you can stay. Also, if you like K-pop or anything like that, idol music, on Tuesdays I upload drawing or art edits that I do of them that are on my Instagram page. It's speed painting, speed art, drawing, whatever you want to call it. I do upload those every Tuesday, and I upload videos like this every Saturday/Sunday. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you stay, and goodbye.